Hey folks, Ted from Immersion here, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Kingdoms and Warfare, the new MCDM. Well, not new, it came out on Kickstarter last year, but it officially released in PDF form today, and you can pick it up over at the MCDM store. So, Kingdoms and Warfare, I thought I would just jump over first to the Kickstarter page to show you. It raised $1.3 million, so no small feat by any means. And I do have a copy of it. It was provided to me for review purposes. That being said, my review is my own, and I have my own opinions on it. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is kind of what this supplement is, and this one, I'll link you to this if you want to go check it out, sort of the warfare concept of the Kickstarter itself. Now, I'll be honest with you folks, when I was reading through it, it is a 328-page document, so it is massive, and it is a lot to go through. And basically I say the first 100 plus or so pages of the book are basically the Kingdoms and Warfare part. What it is it's basically adding large-scale combat warfare to 5th edition. And frankly, when I read through it, it was a lot. It's a lot of mechanics. It's a lot of stuff to understand. And even at the beginning, it does tell you, like, feel free to skim through this and reference back to the glossary if you don't understand something. And as someone who doesn't, I've played around with mass combat in my games and stuff, but I don't really plan on running anything to this degree, as it is a whole series of mechanics that has to be layered on top of 5e. And to me, it feels like when you're diving to this degree of detail, 5th edition is probably not the best. And, I've learned this as time has gone on over the years that, I love Dungeons and Dragons, but there are some things it just doesn't do well. For example, I don't really think horror and, like, tension is really something that's done well in 5th edition just because of the way Dungeons and Dragons is designed. Same thing, I'm sure there's better options out there for how to, like, if you want to run mass army-style campaigns. But that being said, I wanted to jump back to this. So this is kind of a primer on how this works. And you can see there are a variety of different showing out how battlefields works. There are different ranks. There are different domains. Here's like a human infantry person. They have their own stat blocks, different traits and abilities, and how you can do different things to involve them all in the ongoing warfare. There are officers, there are generals, there's a whole bunch of stuff. But what I wanted to focus on today is something that I think, regardless of whether or not you plan on including mass combat in your game, something that I think anyone can use. And that is the concept of the action-oriented monsters and sort of the villains that they've added into the campaign. If I go over here, here is my PDF copy here. You can see, again, the first however many pages here are all about the different maneuvers and things you can do. And like I said, while that is a specific concept, and if that is something that you're going to be looking to do in your campaign, then I do recommend you pick this up, and I recommend you read through it, because it is one of the better versions of dealing with mass, kingdom-wide warfare-style combat. Again, not something that I plan on doing anytime soon. I tried messing around with it a couple times, and I'm okay. I've had my fill, and I'm done. But I often find that and I've said this before, that interesting villains and villainous style encounters, the likes of which we see in movies and video games and comic books, they don't necessarily translate one-to-one to D&D. Something is missing. And upon reading through some of these, I do honestly think a lot of the stuff that's described here in this particular section might fix it. So basically it goes on to say, and some of this I definitely think can ring true, and if you've been playing for a while or running games for a while, I think you can agree. This says these are designed to be boss monsters. And again, I think one of the biggest problems we run into as DMs, especially newer DMs, is the concept of a boss monster. You put like a singular boss monster and then you put it up against a party of 4 people and they just absolutely decimate the thing because it's 4-on-1. So it says enemies that take on an entire party by themselves or with a handful of minions, but boss monsters that are just higher challenge rating often fail to challenge the characters, like I was just saying. So here's the solution: action-oriented monsters. The key to efficient solo villains is giving them plenty of opportunities to act, even when it's not their turn. Thus, each action-oriented monster in this book has at least one special bonus action and reaction, as well as villain actions that let them dominate the field. Now, villain actions are very similar in concept to legendary actions, but you can kind of think of them as a replacement. But as such, there are usually 3 villainous actions, and you'll see them kind of described here on the right side: an opener, a crowd control, and an ultimate move. But the thing is, they can each only be used once, where legendary actions can be used every turn. All villainous actions can only be used, each one of them, once a combat. But because of that, they are significantly more higher powered and do a lot more damage. And that is kind of what's described here. So you can see another thing that I like is it does bring back sort of the concept of how things work. Because it uses a recommended round order. That is something that we used to have in older editions, and we've seen it in some supplemental material from third parties, where they'll tell you basically, like, the monster will start by doing this, and then when it gets threatened, it'll do this or that. And I like that because it does help you if you're unfamiliar, you're picking up a monster you haven't really looked at, you could just look at that as a quick guide and say, oh, okay, this is how it goes. So it says the first villain action is an opener, which shows the character that they are not battling a typical monster. Openers generally deal some damage, summon a minion or something, and that's just basically a starter move. Then comes crowd control. Typically fires after the heroes have had a chance to respond once or twice, get into position, and surround them. The second action helps regain the upper hand. Like an opener, it comes in many flavors, so this is not necessarily the second round of combat. You might go a little tit for tat with the different the different player characters, and then all of a sudden, okay, let's unlock the crowd control one here. And then the third and final one is the ultimate or ult move, a showstopper that the villain can use to deal a devastating blow before the end of the battle. It says, while every creature has a recommended order of actions, you can take the villain actions in the order that's most dramatic. You could push back a villain action if the monster is stunned so that it can use it when it needs to, or it might stay alive for more than 3 rounds, or you could perform the recommended third action, like say the party hits you with 2 crit hits, you're doing a lot of damage. Well, it's like, all right, well, we took a ton of damage, let's activate a villainous action rather. And you can see there are a variety of different courts here. There's the Court of Decay, Court of the Deep, Court of the 7 Cities, Gemstone Dragons, and this Relg the Descender, the Lord in Corpulect. So Court of Decay are undead monsters, Court of the Deep are demons, and Court of the 7 Cities are devils, and then Gem Dragons are gem dragons. So we can go ahead and take a look. I think we'll just probably use our first guy right here, Czar Anathema, I think. The Shackled King, the King in Gold. This is basically, as you can see, a dwarven king who has been sort of undeadified. He has this undead artifact that's kind of shackled him there. But here is his actual stat block. So you can see he's a challenge rating 13 creature. And there is also rules in here too to add villainous actions and stuff to creatures that you, to increase things to creatures you already have. So if you want to improve that's an option as well. But you can see he's got a ton of hit points, decent armor class resistances. And then it says as a bonus action, he throws this item that's shackled to his leg at one creature. They must make a strength save or be pulled towards him. He gets hit points every turn. Legendary resistance, sunlight sensitivity, and turn resistance. So we can see his actions. He's got 3 Warhammer attacks, which again, I like that if he hits twice, they have to roll to save or be stunned. And then he has his Talak Oranic, which is a magical artifact. The target's strength score is reduced by a d4 and they gain a level of exhaustion. The target dies if their strength is reduced to 0. Otherwise, the reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. If they die, 2 shadows controlled by him rise from their corpse. He also, as we saw, he had a bonus action up here. He has a reaction, which is whenever he takes damage, he can create a 15-foot radius sphere of magical darkness centered on himself. And then we also have the 3 villainous actions, right? So it says right here he can take he takes villain action 1 on the first round, 2 on the second round, and 3 on the third round. Again, you can split that up depending, but if you think the combat's going to be over in 3 rounds, take them in that order. So our opener is Summon Shades. He calls forth shades captured within the magical artifact. A will-o-wisp appears in an unoccupied space next to each enemy within 30 feet of him that he can see. So if you have 4 party members that are attacking him, he can summon 4 will-o-wisps. They act immediately when they're summoned, and then immediately after him on the same initiative count, and fight until they're destroyed. They follow his commands and disappear if he dies. Next up is the call unto death, which was the crowd control. A draining pulse emits from the artifact. Any creature that is not undead within 30 feet must succeed on a DC 18 Wisdom save or gain a level of exhaustion. If the target is within 5 feet, they make it with disadvantage. And lastly, his ultimate move, which is called Reaper, souls surge from the artifact on his that he's shackled to. Any creature that is not undead within 60 feet must make a DC 18 con save or take 8d6 necrotic damage and gain a level of exhaustion. On a success, they take half damage and aren't exhausted. A humanoid slayed by this villain action that is not brought back to life before the start of its next turn rises as a white under his control. And you can see if we scroll down, we have a variety of different options here, which is like maybe a giant. We have this sweet looking Yuan T style character here. We've got sort of a Fey style. It's the Foxglove Court, so it's like a Battle Master style. We've got a Paladin looking guy here, which is awesome. And again, you can see he's got an arena of pain, conjures up walls around him, which is pretty sweet. And then look at his ultimate, Soul Shred. He causes his weapon here, I don't know how you pronounce it, but he causes his sword here to tear at the soul of all creatures within 60 feet. Each of them must make a DC 19 con save or take 78 plus 30 necrotic damage on a failed save or half on a success. And again, if I were to just scroll down a little bit more, we could get into the Court of the Deep. Now, these all have a unique mechanic I thought was interesting, which is the concept of being fueled by souls. And they have different soul abilities here, which, again, if you know anything about demons, that's kind of how they operate. They gather souls and it allows them to move on. And there's a variety, gain in power, and there are a variety of different options you can do, and rules for adding these soul charges and things to other demons that already exist in the game. Again, Court of the Seven Cities is your devil-style creatures here. And then again, fitting, because we've been talking so much about Fizzbands lately, we can talk about the Gemstone Dragons. There are some psionic abilities here, but then there is... See, here is a large gemstone evil dragon here, which does have its own series of different abilities. Auras, rifting abilities, we can see it has psionics, it has its various actions, a reaction, and then lair actions, regional effects, but on top of all of that are villain actions. And then, yeah, let's look at some of its actions. Let's look at its villain actions. Because I looked through the rest of the book here, and we do have a variety of different magic items. Again, a lot of those are tied to... They are unique magic items in and of themselves, but they are also useful for boosting the warfare side of the game. New codices are different kind of magic level artifacts that fit from what was introduced in Strongholds and Followers, and then the region of Bedegar is an adventure to help you further understand the way the rules of Kingdoms and Warfare work. But let's see. So we have Terraform. He conjures a monolith in an unoccupied space. Let's see. And at initiative count 10 each round until its destruction, it pulses with black lightning. Each creature of the dragon's choice within 30 feet must make a DC 20 Dex save or take 66 lightning damage. If the dragon is within 30 feet, then it gains 66 hit points. Immediately after the first pulse, the ground within 30 feet becomes difficult terrain. Then our crowd control here summons 1d4 allies from one or more planes to aid in battle. Each ally must be a creature with a CR 9 or lower, can have a lair, legendary, or villain actions. They each appear in an unoccupied space within 10 feet, act on their own initiative, and fight until they're destroyed. They follow the dragon's commands. And then lastly is Freeze, uses a special psionic manifestation that costs no charges and mimics the Time Stop spell. Pretty powerful stuff overall. So again, like I said, you can see also the adventure is split up into, I think, 5 parts, or just 3 different parts. But yeah, again, there's 328 pages to go through. If you're looking to add mass style combat and warfare to your games, this is absolutely one of the most in-depth and intricately designed options that you can find for 5th edition. Like I said, that's not really for me, so I wanted to focus on something that I feel like anybody could use, and those villains, and the concept of villain actions in general. So, I actually thought there was rules for applying villains actions to all creatures, but I was thinking it was actually just the soul option there for applying to the various different demons. But the concept still remains the same. I like this. Remove the legendary actions that they can do every turn, jack up the power level immensely, and give them something that sort of opens up the fight that says, like, hey, look at me, I'm not just your average dragon, your average giant, whatever. Get your crowd control one where the party thinks they've got the upper hand, and then you change the game by doing something crowd control. And when it almost looks like you're done, go for your all-out, you know, self-destruct style move that does a ton of damage and maybe knocks the party down, and then again helps make that fight that much more memorable. So thank you again to the MCDM team for sending this over for review purposes. Again, if I ever do look to go back into mass combat, I will absolutely be referencing this. But in the meantime, villain actions are definitely something that I'll be using consistently. So thank you all so much for watching. I'll have a link in the description if you'd like to go pick up a copy for yourself. And I will see you all next time.